Well, hello and a very warm welcome to Daily Dispatch, a show that gives you all the latest news and updates from the digital ecosystem. I'm Priya Sheth. Thank you so much for logging in. Time now to get you all the top news stories that we've been tracking this evening. Well, in what could be a mega deal, sources indicate that the Tata Group is all set to acquire 68% stake in online grocery platform Big Basket for around 9,500 crore rupees. Now, this acquisition puts the enterprise value of Big Basket at over 13,500 crore rupees. Well, moving on to the second headline of the day, IT giants IBM and Tech Mahindra have said that they will be deepening their collaboration in areas like 5G, hybrid cloud automation, as well as cybersecurity. This comes as the two tech giants work towards building a billion-dollar ecosystem over the next 3 years. Well, digital healthcare platform MediBuddy has raised 25 crore rupees debt fund from venture debt firm Innovent Capital. To remember that MediBuddy recently closed a 290 crore rupees Series B funding round, which was led by India Life Sciences Fund 3. Well, global neobank Zolve has raised $15 million in a seed round led by Axel Partners and Lightspeed Ventures. The funds will be used to build the core technology platform, expanding the team, and for marketing efforts. Well, moving on to the final headline of the day, OnePlus co-founder Carl Pay's consumer tech startup Nothing plans to raise $1.5 million via community funding. Following this community funding round, investors will have access to Nothing's private community through which they will get exclusive benefits and insights into the company.
Well, moving on to our second segment of the day, we have with us a very electrifying speaker, specifically in the electric vehicle space. We have with us Tarun Mehta, who is the CEO of Ather Energy. Thank you very much, Mr. Mehta, for joining us on the Daily Dispatch. I want to begin by asking you how the last year has been, considering that lots of businesses have been in lockdown and we've seen business cycles being volatile for several companies. At Ather Energy, how did 2020 pan out?
2020 was a challenging year. Our production and most of our work was shut down for about a quarter. In fact, production took almost 4 months to come back on track. Supplies took almost 4 months to come back online. So in that sense, it was quite a bit of disruption. But the markets recovered, actually more than recovered. By October, we were back to pre-COVID numbers, and since then, we've had some terrific growth. We've overall grown more than 30-40% month on month. We are seeing more footfalls in our retail centers than ever before. I think last month was our highest footfalls ever in Ather's history. So yes, the pandemic disrupted things for a while, but I think we are back to a decent place for the industry.
You know, you've been in news for setting up a new plant in Tamil Nadu. What is your sense in terms of how the uptake has been, and in terms of overall expansion? Run us through your expansion plans.
So we've set up a new plant in Hosur in Tamil Nadu. That's about an hour and a half from Bangalore. The last 2 years, we were essentially in a pilot phase. We were stabilizing the product, stabilizing the supply chain, stabilizing cost. And now that we are at a good place on all those fronts, and by the way, which is also the reason why the last 2 years we only presented 2 cities. While the product was very well received and we always had a long waiting time, we kind of controlled the production to make sure that we had a good amount of stability first. We think we're at a good place now, and with that in mind, we are ramping up our number of cities. So we are adding we are opening 27 cities totally. They'll be up in a few months. Already test rides and payments are open in, I think, 8 cities now. With this in mind, and given that we're going from 2 to almost 30 cities, we've moved to a new production plant. That's a Hosur plant. It's already gone live and has already an increased capacity over our previous Bangalore plant. And by second half of this year, this should hit 8,000 a month capacity, guys. So fingers crossed, looks good. The place is coming out beautifully.
Yeah, well, exciting times ahead. But, in terms of electric vehicles, India is still in a very early stage as far as the whole concept of EVs are concerned. And specifically with regards to experience centers, I do understand that you are opening up and scaling up the kind of experience centers on a pan-India basis. So what has been the kind of traction? Are people coming to experience centers? What are the main queries that people have with respect to EVs?
So most people walking in our experience centers now are they're actually very different from what we imagined them to be many years back. 3 4 years back, when we were still designing the product, we kind of expected that people walking into a store would be coming with a lot of baggage around electric. They would probably assume that electric is not fun, electric is not great. But now what we see is most people walking in are expecting to be wowed by electric. They're expecting electric to be the next upgrade. They're expecting electric to be something very different and crazy. And I think that's amazing. Such aware customers and such excited customers walking in kind of makes for a great crowd. So I would say that's the biggest difference. What we focus on in our experience centers is, and that's why I call them experience centers, is tell customers more about what is electric, tell customers more about what is a connected vehicle experience, tell customers more about actually paint them a little bit of a story of how vehicles are going to look different. And what we have built is your earliest peek into that. So that's what we do at experience centers more than anything else.
Talk to us about innovation, because considering that you're a startup, you've always been hands-on in creating and giving people a very good experience in terms of whether it being inserting a SIM card, a 4G SIM card, or Bluetooth in the EVs that you have. What more is on the anvil on the innovation side? And in terms of pricing, what is your view on how pricing plays out in the EV market?
So there have been a lot of firsts that our products have been a part of. We were the first electric scooter with this kind of a performance in India. We were the first connected scooter. We have been actually the only ones with integrated Google Maps. I think we are globally the only ones with the touchscreen on the scooter itself. We're certainly the first one to have connectivity, Bluetooth back then, and a lot of different things. Fast charging, for example. I think over the coming 2 3 years, big innovations that you should expect from us would be on charging speeds. We expect charging speeds to keep dropping, to keep improving, and charging times to keep dropping. We are today at 45 minutes for an 80% charge. I expect this number will drop anywhere between 40 to 50% over the next 2 3 years. More innovations will come, more new features will come around on the software side, the dashboard side. Today we have things like automatic lighting, we have sound customization, we have document storage, we have integrated Google Maps. You should see more options pop up here. And on the product side, we're keeping it simple. At least in the short term, we are not looking at introducing new products per se. We may have a few more variants, but not new product lines immediately. Coming to pricing, we've taken a different view there from the market. We think the Indian market has been one which is supply constraint and not demand constraint. We believe it's not a correct view that the Indian market will only buy the lowest priced product. In fact, that's been usually untrue in the two-wheeler space. If you look at the original Honda Activa, that was the most expensive scooter back then. If you look at the Pulsar, that was one of the most expensive bikes to have been introduced 15 years back, 20 years back. If you look at Royal Enfield, that's obviously an extremely successful story. So the Indian market, especially the two-wheeler market, has been a story of the one who has been able to dare and introduce a new feature or a new value for the customer is able to create a new price segment altogether. We believe with what we're building in electric and connected, that's an opportunity for us. We've obviously started from a premium pricing, and I think the products make sense there. We would love to have variants that are priced differently, maybe lower, but we're not sure of that today. I think we want to learn from the market for a little longer before we jump into more variants.
So in 2021, we can't expect any more variants to hit the market. Are you going to stick with the product that you have?
Yeah.
As we speak, companies like Ola are also getting into the EV segment for two-wheelers. So wanted to understand in terms of competition, how do you see the dynamics shaping up in the Indian market?
I think it's terrific. Companies like Ola bringing in electric vehicles, the amount of education that creates for the market is phenomenal. Today, a lot of people in the main metro areas know about Ather, but people in a lot of tier 2 and tier 3 towns don't know about Ather or about electric or connected vehicles. I think somebody like Bajaj, somebody like Ola talking about electric at a bigger scale really helps everybody. It also helps the supply chain massively because now there are more suppliers who come into the landscape. So the overall supplier pool expands, more investments come in. And that is always great news for competition, for pricing, for product quality, for optionality on every single thing.
You spoke about investments, and I know that you have been investing into setting up your plant and also rolling out more innovation and features. You also have a very interesting set of investors who have come on board. Run us through, is there a need for more funds? Because I understand November 2020, you all did one round of fundraise as well. So, what is the immediate need of capital, and will you be looking at raising more capital this year?
I think for now we are well capitalized. We've raised the investment required to see this production through, see the production ramp through. If we raise more capital, which is not immediately for sure, maybe later this year, that would be for further sales expansion. But from a manufacturing side, for now, I think we're okay.
Okay, and just a final question before I let you go. We saw the union budget that was announced a couple of days ago. Of course, on the EV front, we haven't seen any significant impetus from the government. So, do you think that the government needs to do more on the charging infrastructure front, or any other aspects that you would like more action from the government to support this industry?
I think the sector needs more product financing, more vehicle financing, and customer financing. I mean, making this a priority sector for lending would really help with that. It will enable better rates for end customers and bring in more banks who would be willing to finance electric vehicles. Today, we have a few good options, but it pales in comparison. And this is a long way because I remember 5-6 years back there were zero options. But it pales in comparison with the petrol engine world where every single bank has a great offering. So I think a government making a push there and making this a priority sector and pushing in more banks to sort of look at EV financing would be a great step. Second would be on charging infrastructure. I think not direct investments by the government, but some sort of a policy support that enables easier setup of home charging would go a long way in bringing more customers into the EV market.
All right, and in terms of international expansion, what are your plans? Are you looking at taking your EVs overseas?
No, we are focused on domestic market for the short term.
All right, Mr. Mehta, it was a real pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much for joining us on the Daily Dispatch. Thank you so much.
Well, time now to say goodbye. Many thanks for joining us on this edition of Daily Dispatch. I'll see you tomorrow at 5 p.m. Goodbye and see you tomorrow.